The key still fit. That surprised me more than it should have. I turned it slowly, half expecting resistance, but the lock gave way with a soft click, the same as it always had. I stepped inside with the stew pot in my hands, wrapped in a towel to keep it warm. It was Loretta's favorite lentils ginger cumin, the kind of meal that lingered in a kitchen long after it was gone. The hallway smelled faintly of eucalyptus. New. Not ours. I walked in and saw Loretta first. She was at the kitchen island scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up until I placed the pot on the counter. "Oh," she said, like she'd forgotten I had a key. "You should have called first." I blinked. "I brought dinner." "We already ate," she replied, setting her phone down. Before I could speak, Vivian appeared in the doorway, hair-damp sleeves pushed up tape measure hanging from one hand. "Next time a heads-up would be great," she said, offering me a thin smile. "This is kind of our space now. Our space." I glanced around. The curtains had changed. The rug was new. Even the spice rack had been rearranged. I opened the fridge to slide in the stew and saw rows of labeled containers, meal preps, mason jars, oat milk that wasn't there before. No one said thank you. Vivian moved past me and pointed to the wall near the staircase. "We're thinking of repainting. That lavender in the guest room. Too cold. The guest room. My room." Loretta offered a tight smile. "It's been working well, the setup. It's just easier when things stay predictable." Predictable. I nodded once. "Of course." I didn't stay long. I left the pot in the fridge, walked through the quiet I used to call home, and let myself out with the same key I had always used. But this time it didn't feel like it unlocked anything at all. The next time I visited, it was only to drop off a package that had been mistakenly delivered to Sophie's. I didn't plan to stay. I didn't even take off my coat. The curtains were gray now, thick hotel-like fabric that blocked the light. They hung heavy where lace used to flutter. The photo wall was gone too. In its place, 3 minimalist canvases. Beige on beige. I set the box down by the stairs. Loretta glanced at it from across the room but said nothing. "I figured it was something Vivian ordered," I said. "She's upstairs." Loretta replied, "Not quite an invitation." I turned toward the kitchen. The spice rack was different. The tin of Dad's garam masala was missing. In its place, labeled jars with sleek black lids. I pulled open the drawer near the stove, half hoping for something familiar, but even the old wooden spoons had been replaced. Vivian came down with a pile of towels. She nodded at the box. "Thanks for dropping that off. You could have just left it outside." "I was already in the neighborhood," I said. She smiled. "Well, we're trying to keep things calm in here. Clean lines, low clutter. You know." I didn't actually. "Have you seen the hallway?" She continued, pointing. "I painted it taupe last weekend." The yellow was a little loud. I walked over and ran my fingers along the wall. The color was smooth cold. No trace of the fingerprints that once smudged near the light switch. No sign of the chart we'd taped up to measure our heights as kids. I drove back to Sophie's with the radio off. Later that night, she found me sitting at the kitchen table, turning my house key over in my hand. "They're making it theirs," I said quietly. Room by room. She didn't ask what that meant. She just placed a cup of tea beside me and sat down. Outside, the wind picked up. Inside, something settled in my chest. Not anger, not yet, just the early shape of knowing. It started with a phone call on a rainy Thursday. Vivian's voice trembled just enough to sound raw, but composed. She and Owen were separating, and she needed a place to stay, just until I figure things out, she said. A few months at most. Loretta echoed the same thing a day later. "She needs us right now," she told me over tea. "It'll be good for her. And temporary, of course." At the time, it felt like the right thing to do. I offered to move in with Sophie so they could have more space. "It's just for a little while," I said, folding up my bedsheets and packing a few essentials into a suitcase. "Just until things settle." I didn't ask them to cover the bills. The house was still in my name. I kept paying the property tax, the insurance, the gas, and electric. Loretta sent updates every so often, mostly about Vivian's job search, her adjustment, her need for calm. I still came by sometimes, bringing groceries, grabbing mail, fixing things no one else noticed. But with each visit, it seemed like the furniture had shifted. The photos had thinned out, the air itself no longer remembered me. At the 6-month mark, I asked Vivian how her apartment search was going. She waved a hand. "Mom's comfortable with me here. It's working. No need to rush." Loretta didn't disagree. That night, I found the utility bill in my inbox again. Auto-debited like always. My name, my address, their life. Sophie looked up from the couch when I tossed my keys on the table. "Still temporary?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there watching the rain drip down the window. "I think I gave them space," I said finally. "But I don't think they ever planned to give it back." She didn't say anything, but she didn't need to. Somewhere between helping and stepping aside, I had disappeared, and no one had noticed. I had gone to the house to pick up an old file for tax season, something I knew was still in the upstairs cabinet where Dad used to keep important papers. The drawer had always been ours in that unspoken family way. Old passports, vaccination cards, school certificates, even a few birthday cards he couldn't throw away. But when I pulled the handle, it didn't budge. Locked. I stood there for a moment, hand still on the knob. Then I called down the stairs. "Loretta, do you have the key to the filing drawer?" A pause. Then her voice floated up casual. "Oh, Vivian keeps her serums in there now. It's just skincare stuff." Skincare. "I needed the mortgage file," I said. "Should still be in there." "You should have said something earlier," she replied. "We've all had to make room for what matters." I froze. What matters? I walked back down the stairs without answering, my palms warm from gripping the banister too tightly. Later that day, I checked the basement. The bins were stacked 3 high, each labeled in Vivian's handwriting, "Winter Decor Workout Gear Kitchen Overflow." In the far corner, unmarked and slightly dusty, I found them. My sketchbooks, a shoebox of Polaroids, the stuffed bear with the crooked button eye I used to sleep with, all crammed into a plastic tub, its lid halfway snapped shut like someone hadn't bothered finishing the job. I sat on the basement floor and opened the sketchbook. On the first page was a drawing of our old cat curled on the windowsill. I remembered that afternoon, the way the light hit her fur, how long I sat cross-legged trying to get her whiskers just right. When I came back upstairs, Loretta and Vivian were rearranging the living room. Vivian was holding a new lamp, all brushed gold in clean lines. "We're thinking of replacing the bookshelf," she said, nodding toward the one that used to hold our family albums. Loretta looked up at me with a smile that didn't quite land. "Change is good, right?" I said nothing. Just stood there. It was strange how space could be filled so quickly, how someone else's things could nestle into yours without asking, and how without meaning to you could be packed away with the rest of the clutter. It wasn't one moment. It was hundreds of them stacked quiet as dust on top of each other. The first time I really felt it was the Wi-Fi. I came by one morning to send a document before a client call. I'd used the same password for years, Dad's birthday and the street number. It had always worked. That day, it didn't. I asked Loretta. She blinked like she was surprised I didn't know. Vivian changed it a few weeks ago. Something more secure. She didn't offer the new one. I didn't ask again. Then, weeks later, I stopped by after a doctor's appointment. Loretta wasn't home, but I had left my health insurance card in the drawer by the fridge. When I opened it, the folder was gone. Vivian looked up from the couch. "Oh, Mom took your name off the emergency contacts. Said you're not living here right now. Not living here." It wasn't said with malice. It was said with certainty. I smiled tight-lipped and left without another word. Another time I slipped and said I'll bring it next time I'm home. It was about a sweater I'd borrowed, nothing important. Vivian tilted her head. "You mean the house?" "You don't live here anymore, Anissa. You have a place now, right?" She didn't say it unkindly. She said it like it was a fact she assumed I'd already accepted. I nodded, but that night I couldn't sleep. I opened my journal, the one I kept zipped at the bottom of my suitcase. I wrote until my hand ached. "They didn't forget me," I wrote. "They rewrote me." Each line that had once held my name had been edited, not crossed out, just replaced. With new routines, new labels, new locks. They hadn't slammed a door. They'd made it slowly disappear. I remembered how Dad used to say, "It's the things they don't say that tell you the most." Back then, I thought he was talking about grief. Now, I think he was talking about this erosion, this quiet dismissal passed off as practicality. I stared at the last sentence on the page. It pulsed. Maybe I let it happen. Maybe I didn't want to be the one to make noise to claim a corner to say, this part is still mine. Maybe I thought if I stayed quiet enough, they'd make room for me again. But they hadn't, and I was starting to see that they never planned to. It was late when I pulled the suitcase from under Sophie's guest bed. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just needed to feel like something still belonged to me. I unzipped the side pouch and found it there, the red folder slightly warped at the corners, the elastic band still stretched around the middle. Inside were the papers I'd forgotten I still had. The house deed, utilities, tax receipts. My name still printed at the top of every form. I sat on the carpet with the folder open across my knees, flipping slowly through the pages. My signature repeated itself again and again. It hit me soft, but final. The house was still mine. The mortgage had been paid off after Dad died. I had kept everything in my name to make things easier. It was supposed to be temporary. My phone buzzed once. A calendar alert for the water bill due next week. I stared at the screen, then closed the folder and walked to the kitchen. The next morning, I found the old business card tucked inside a cookbook. Martin Feldman, the realtor who helped us buy the house. He used to send Christmas cards every year with a photo of his dog in a Santa hat. I dialed the number. Feldman Realty, a woman answered. Hi, I said. Is Martin still available? A pause. One moment, then his voice. Older now, but warm. Martin speaking. Hi, I said again. This is Anissa Nouri. You helped my parents buy the house on Alder Lane 20 years ago. Alder Lane, he said. Yes, of course. Beautiful 2-story near the cherry trees. How can I help? I looked out the window. Sophie was watering her basil plant on the porch. I'm thinking of selling, I said. There was a beat of silence. All right, he said gently. Is this urgent? No. But it's time. Quiet sale. No signs. Just someone who's ready. I heard the way my own voice sounded. Not sharp. Not sad. Just still. Understood, he replied. We'll make it simple. I thanked him, hung up, and placed the folder on the kitchen counter. Then I made tea. Not to calm myself, not to think things through, just to mark the beginning of something else. I didn't bring anything with me that morning. No groceries, no leftovers, no peace offering, just my keys and a folded printout in my coat pocket. When Loretta opened the door, she blinked like I was someone she'd forgotten was still on the list. Oh, she said. You're early. I won't stay long, I replied. Vivian was in the living room, arms crossed, phone in hand, dressed like she hadn't planned to see anyone. Her eyes scanned me once uninterested, like she was already preparing to be inconvenienced. I stepped just inside. The smell of eucalyptus hung in the air, one of Vivian's diffusers humming quietly on the side table. I came to let you know the house has been sold, I said, voice steady. Loretta looked up sharply. Excuse me. It closed yesterday, I continued. The new owners move in next week. You have 6 days. Vivian laughed short and mean. You're joking. I'm not. Loretta stepped forward. Anissa, what are you talking about? We never discussed. You said I should call before coming into my own home, I said calmly. You both made it clear this place wasn't mine anymore. I honored that. Vivian's voice rose. This isn't how things are done. You don't just sell the house and drop it on us like we're tenants. I didn't treat you like tenants, I said. I treated you like family. You treated me like a guest. Loretta's eyes filled. You didn't even warn us. We had plans. Vivian's work, my physical therapy. You had time, I said. You just used it like you had more. Vivian shook her head, stunned. So what now? We just pack up and go. I nodded once. That's the idea. No one moved. The silence pressed in hard, like the walls were listening. I'm not angry, I added. I just stopped waiting to be included. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like the one being pushed out. I felt like the one holding the door. The door creaked the same way it always had. that faint protest from the hinges just enough to let you know someone had arrived. I stepped inside and let it close behind me. The house was quiet, not peaceful, just waiting. I moved through the rooms slowly. The living room still held Dad's old chair, though it had been pushed into a corner now half covered with throw blankets that didn't belong to us. The lamp next to it, the one he used to read under, flickered a little when I turned it on. The kitchen counters were cleaner than I'd ever seen them. Vivian's style, minimal, no clutter, no soul. I ran my hand along the edge of the sink, pausing at the chip in the tile that we'd never fixed properly. I remembered kneeling there with Dad holding a flashlight while he muttered about grout and budgets and doing it right the first time. Upstairs, a door slammed. "Vivian, I didn't go after her." Loretta stood at the end of the hallway, arms folded, saying nothing. Her eyes didn't meet mine. She didn't have to speak. Her silence had said more than enough this past year. I opened the linen closet and touched the edge of the quilt Nana made. I had assumed it was long gone. Folded tight now, buried behind newer sheets as if it didn't match the palette. In my old room, the bed was stripped. No photos, no books, no sign I'd ever slept there at all. Just bare walls and a new desk facing the window I once watched storms through. I stood in the doorway and let the stillness settle around me. Then I turned off the light. Back downstairs, I opened the back door and stepped onto the porch. The cherry tree was still there, taller now, its branches bare in the late winter air. I used to climb it with Vivian. She once pushed me too hard, and I scraped my knees so bad I couldn't wear jeans for a week. We laughed about it then. I watched the wind move the branches. Then I walked to the front door, opened it without hesitation, and stepped outside. No one followed. No one called my name. I didn't cry. I just breathed. Sophie cleared a space in the guest room for me. She didn't make a big show of it, just added a lamp by the bed, tucked a few books into the empty shelf, and framed a photo of me and Dad for the windowsill. It was the one where we're both laughing mid-blink, blurry, and perfect. The light in the room was soft, the kind that filtered in without needing permission. I unpacked slowly. Not because there was much to put away, just because it felt different this time. No rush to prove I'd be gone soon. No pressure to minimize my presence. Just a quiet kind of welcome. Each night, I wrote. Nothing structured. Just scraps of memory. Fragments of questions I hadn't let myself ask out loud. One morning, I opened a tab and found a local writing class Thursday evening's community center, no prerequisites. I signed up before I could talk myself out of it. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. "Loretta." The message was short. "We didn't expect this." That was it. Not an apology. Not a question. Just a reaction dropped into my inbox like a stone in still water. I stared at it for a while, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I set the phone down. I walked to the window, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at the photo. Dad had written a note on the back, once, "Don't wait to be seen." "Live like you already are." I pressed my hand lightly to the glass. The tree outside was beginning to bud. The message came mid-morning as I was chopping vegetables for lunch. "Vivian, after weeks of silence." We could have talked. I read it twice then again, as if there was more hidden between the words. But there wasn't. It was too late for that kind of revision. I typed back slowly. I talked. "You didn't listen." No reply followed. 2 days later, the moving truck pulled up to Alder Lane. I didn't go to meet the new owners, just watched from my car for a moment as they carried in boxes, plants a child's bicycle, a young couple mid-30s already laughing in the driveway. I placed the banana bread on the porch, still warm, wrapped in a tea towel, and tucked a small card underneath. No name. Just, "Welcome home." At the Women's Center, I started organizing Saturday workshops. Nothing big. Just a few hours helping with resumes, leading quiet writing circles. I felt useful there, seen without performance. A name on a sign-up sheet, not an afterthought. Sophie noticed the difference before I did. "You've stopped holding your breath," she said one evening over tea. Maybe I had. I still thought about the house sometimes, not with longing, but with the kind of distance you give something that once mattered more than it should have. I didn't sell the house out of anger. I sold it because it no longer remembered me.